Some time ago now, I was honoured to be asked by Weird Miniatures to paint up the Alice in Wonderland inspired Nightmare Edition set. And this was my first proper exposure to the wacky world of weird limited and alternate editions. But it would certainly not be the last time, and I've come to realise that these limited and special edition sculpts from Weird might actually be some of my favourites out there. Now, you're all probably familiar with my little random box of viewers' miniatures. It was a thing we did a while ago where people sent stuff in and I promised a random paint job and hopefully a video. Well, on my last little venture into that box, I decided to pull out two miniatures and kind of noticed something straight away. A lot of you sent Malifaux, and it just so happens that a lot of that Malifaux was special edition stuff too. For example, here's the Carver, part of the Iconic series. These are special releases with exquisite sculpting and often come as both a tabletop size model and a blown up large scale version. Believe it or not, this is the tabletop sized one. And I was really excited to see this because I keep thinking about buying this special edition box set myself. But then I opened this. This is the alternate sculpt for the Lone Swordsman, and yeah, your eyes don't deceive you. This is a rabbit samurai. Now, I am on record as being a pretty big fan of Japanese visuals, so once again, this is a miniature that really appeals to me. It looks like this is going to be a fun day's painting, and I decided to take you with me and hopefully drop a little lesson along the way. But before that happens, I have to admit that seeing these two kind of got me scouring through more pics for various weird alternate and special edition bits, and I came to the realization I am absolutely in love. Weird seem to just have this magical power at their fingertips where, on one hand, the visual style of their world is so unique and so special, yet as soon as they reach outside of it, they seem to immediately touch on exactly the right source material to create something just amazing. So, to get these two miniatures painted, I needed a plan. And I wanted to try and think about this a little bit deeper than just picking a colour scheme and applying it to the model. I wanted to really focus on mood and theme and see how that informed my painting decisions. And it actually turned out to be a really fun little exercise. Let's start with Carver. So I really wanted to show how imposing and scary he is. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on dark tones here, and even colours that maybe could be lighter, I will render a little darker. And the idea is going to be to focus attention to his pumpkin head, where he's got that big menacing grin. Now, the plan here is to achieve this mostly with colour contrast between the desaturated skin and the natural tones of the leather and the fabric, and then having that big, bold, bright orange pumpkin. However, we also get a lovely device for emphasis here in this knife blade. I'm going to go for something rusty and corroded, but then with a really sharp, polished, shiny edge. My thinking while I'm doing this is, well, I'm kind of reminiscing over old slasher movies where this guy would be an amazing baddie. And overall, as I start to come close to the end of this, I actually feel like I've captured that sense of menace pretty well. And because he's a slightly larger model, it gives a little bit more room to play around and have some fun. We ended up with a proper horror movie slasher in miniature form, which is exactly what I wanted. So that's one down, and we want to keep the pace going. Let's get on with the other one. Let's paint as a rabbit. For this one, I want to go really classical. White rabbit, red samurai armor, gold trims. You know the look, like Lone Samurai of the feudal era meets the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. And I think the key to making this one successful is going to be that armor. I want some really nice strong red paneling, but I also want a really contrasting gold trim. Now obviously I paint mostly in non-metallics, so that's going to mean I need to really focus on getting some good shiny contrast in that gold trim. For the fur, I'm building up from a blue-grey, but towards a warmer white. So I have this tonal variance that really helps the fur look more alive, but it also plays into my plan of a snow base for this guy. The cold undertones in the fur will feel like a cold reflection of the environment, helping to place the rabbit in our intended surroundings. And as this one starts to near a close, you can see how there's different levels of luster and light interaction in the different elements that are all helping to tell the story here. This was a great miniature, and I actually felt a fair bit of pressure painting it to do it justice. Now, I would forgive you if you were staring at your screen at this point and feeling like, what the hell have I just watched? That wasn't a tutorial. And, well, yeah, fair enough, it wasn't really in the traditional sense, because what I'm hoping to pass on here is less about practical application and technique and more about what goes on up here. So I hope that for now, as I show you both of these miniatures completely finished and based, we can just have a quick chat about inspiration, thematics, and how that informs execution. Look, I don't want to sound too flouncy about it, but I do believe that analysing our painting like this can lead to some real gains in how our finished miniatures look. You'll notice that when I started each paint job, I went in with a plan, an intention, and an end goal. In order to achieve that end goal, I had to select not just the colours, but also the techniques and even the stylistic approach most appropriate to achieving that. So I have a question. When's the last time you did this? When you pick up a miniature, is the goal just to get it done, or is there a theme and a setting in your mind that you want the mini to live in? Painting for the table is amazing. However, it doesn't exclude us from thinking about how we theme and set our minis. For example, I've been painting a lot of grimdark stuff recently for Trench Crusade. These sculpts really lend themselves well to those hallmarks of the style: dark tones, single saturated colours placed amongst washed out surroundings, deep shading, and of course, a little gore here and there. That said, when that's variety, whimsy, or just a breath of fresh air that I'm looking for, invariably, I end up reaching for Malifaux. The alternate sculpts always seem to provide something really fun and often a little silly, but the mainline sculpts have such a strong 19th century weirdness vibe that nothing else really shares, and so I always have a place to go to scratch those itches. I think choosing a theme for your painting is not only a great mental exercise, but is also a great way to steer yourself around that devil that is on all of our backs, burnout. Now, I have painted almost every day of my life since 2012 at this point, and yeah, there are days when it's harder than others to want to touch brush to model, but by chasing inspiration and trying to learn how to achieve my thematic goals, I feel like I've been successful in avoiding the really crushing end of burnout over those years. Having this attitude towards my miniatures keeps me hungry for wanting to grab the next one, because it's a whole new theme and a whole new look that I need to start thinking about how to execute, and that creative exercise adds something beyond just picking a colour scheme and applying it to a 3D sculpture. Now, none of this, of course, is to say that painting for the tabletop or painting to get your miniatures done is a bad thing. Anything that brings you satisfaction and makes you feel proud of your hobby is something you should be doing as much of as you have time to. But if you find yourself burning out, if you find yourself lacking in inspiration, maybe this is an alternate way that you could approach looking at your miniatures, thinking about them theme first, rather than as just colour schemes to execute. And hopefully, it'll help you out. So thanks so much for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one, and bye for now.